Welcome back to the Game or Die podcast. I am your host, Ryan Moore, and today is episode 30. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about a lot of games that I've been playing, a lot of smaller games, actually. One of the things that I first started playing when all this crap started happening and I was home for a couple months working from home was Satisfactory. The game came out last year. It just got released on the Steam store as well, and I've been playing it throughout the year, and it's been fantastic. I love it so much. And what happened basically was that I played probably about 30 or 40 hours of it, and then I started new again. I don't know why, but I did. And it was one of those games where I just wanted to play something and pass the time late at night, and I didn't really want to get into a deep story mode, and I just wanted to listen to podcasts or background stuff, giant bomb content or whatever it was. So what I did is I just threw some podcasts on, threw some stuff on, and just played for hours and hours and hours until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, multiple times. And starting on this new sector, basically this planet that is all more deserty and things like that, I was able to learn some of the new stuff, the way not just coal was done, because that kind of happens within about the first 5 or 6 hours of the game. As long as you find it. That was a pain in the butt to find on that level. I basically created all these stairs that just took so much material because it felt like a mile high up in the sky, this huge, gigantic cliff, and there was no way over it. So I built these just stairs that took literally a minute or so to just climb, probably a couple minutes. We're just going around circle, all the way up these gigantic stairs, and finally got to this little tiny coal area where there was 3 coal ore reserves, basically, that are infinite resources. So I built 3 coal plants and then got them all powering everything. And then I started learning about water generators and things like that, hydroelectricity. And finally, instead of having to use biofuel for everything or coal for everything, I could use the water and auto-generate and automate basically all of my stuff. And I freaking loved it. And now that it's on Steam, I haven't gone back to it in a couple of weeks just because of work and all that. We've been pretty busy lately, so I haven't really had a whole lot of time. But the whole automation thing is just such a really fun concept when you get deep into it. Like on the Reddit page for Satisfactory, there is so many crazy things that people are pouring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into this game to build these automation factories where everything looks pristine and perfect and thought out and planned out. I wish I was like that. I really tried at the beginning when I started out on this new planet, but it takes way too much time and effort, and that's not what I'm there for with that game. I'm there to have fun, and if I want to basically build something really cool and unique looking, hey, I'll do it, but that's not my entire goal. My entire goal is to kind of find out the new stuff in that game and ship off all the different stuff that the game wants. And the game's not finished yet either, so I don't know if I'll play Satisfactory anytime soon after the game, until the game actually comes out of early access. So I was playing that a little bit, and then I continued on with my Tony Hawk, revisiting the original Tony Hawk games. I really want to get to 4 because I haven't really played a whole lot of it. I remember playing it when it came out, but that was a long time ago. It's like 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. So, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2X. I believe I talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, but I want to talk about it a little bit more because I freaking destroyed that game. I did everything there possibly could be in that game. And I also want to make a correction of what I said earlier. In the last episode, when I was talking about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2X, the Xbox port of Tony Hawk 2, I said, I thought there was the original game in there, and then I was wrong. Well, I was wrong on that. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2X, the Xbox port, has all of Tony Hawk 2. And then when you finish that, then you get 3 custom levels made specifically for that game. A club level, a construction level, and then another skate park, which I really, really like that skate park in that 2X content. And then once you do that, you unlock Tony Hawk 1, the full game remade in 480p, 720p, 1080i, whatever, semi-HD, whatever you want to call it. But they remade that entire game, all the levels in that game. And so I was wrong when I said, I don't think there actually is, even though I originally thought there was. I was right the first time. There totally is 2 games basically in that full Xbox port. And it's really good. It's so much better than all the other ports. I played the other ports of Tony Hawk 2. I played the PlayStation version. I played the Dreamcast version. I even played a little bit of the Nintendo 64 version. The Xbox version of Tony Hawk 2 is absolutely the best version of that game. It's super crisp, it's super clean. And I played it on an Xbox emulator on my PC, and there was basically nothing wrong with it. There's a little bit of minor graphical glitches in certain areas when you hit specials, but that's about it. The whole game is fully playable, unlocking every character, getting every objective for every character. It took a long time. It took like 16, 17 hours to do every single person with every character, every objective, every level for both, not just Tony Hawk 2, but also the 2X, exclusive levels, and also Tony Hawk 1, the full campaign for each character as well. But like I said, dude, I had a lot of fun in free time over the last several weeks, and getting back into work, I would take the weekend and just kind of play it, during super late at night or whatever, just here and there. And I'd finished it and I had fun. I'm not like someone like the completionist or anything like that, where I have to sit down and I have to go through everything. The only time I collect collectibles or do every objective in games is when I'm having fun. And with the Tony Hawk games, I have a lot of fun. You can say they're comfort games or whatever, but I loved those games back then. I haven't really played them since they came out. So this is the first time I really went through Tony Hawk 2 since it came out. And I had a blast. So I played through all of Tony Hawk 2X. They crammed so much into that game. It was unbelievable. And then I went into Tony Hawk 3. And again, I talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, but I completed that game as well. Every character, all unlocking everything, all the objectives, until I got to the very end of the game where I was doing it with like Elisa Steamer and Jamie Thomas and things like that. There was just a couple times where I was like, I've already unlocked all the levels. Why don't I just complete it, get the, finish up the game? I did not 100% complete this game with every character. I got every character. I got all gold medals on all the levels. I got most of the objectives on all the levels. Characters like Chad Muska, Rodney Mullen, Bam Margera, Tony Hawk, Rune Gilfberg, Eric Costin. These characters I finished up completely 100% with all the levels, all the objectives. But when it was like the last couple and I was just having some real big issues with that game crashing on the original Xbox emulator, basically that game would crash every once in a while. during the competition levels, the ones where you actually have to really try to get good and high scores. And I perfected the gameplay of that game to where I can get, 500,000 points, 99.9 on all the judge scores every single time, pretty much without fail. But the game would crash every once in a while, and it got really discouraging when the game would crash when I had a really high score. I was about to beat the game. Sometimes it would happen where I finished the competition. I got the high scores. I got first place. I unlocked the ending video for the character. And right as it was about to save, it would crash. And that happened a ton of times. Nothing to where I would say don't play it on an Xbox emulator. There's just a couple of little settings. And again, the original Xbox emulator is such a still new thing, relatively. Within only the last couple of years has it actually gotten playable. And it's kind of baffling to me. I'll just go into a little tiny bit of a rant here. It's really baffling to me that there hasn't been an Xbox emulator for the last decade or so, up until semi-recently. And the reason why is because this is what happens in emulator scenes. The more popular emulators, the more popular systems, the nostalgia-based fandom around Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, stuff like that, like the NES and the Super Nintendo, those are the consoles that have more documentation, more eyes on them, and so people develop emulators for them more often. And now we're at a point where we have literally 50 or 60 NES emulators, and people are making new NES emulators all the time. And I just look around and go, why? Stop. We already have pretty much perfect emulation, and I'm not going to get into the Mister stuff, but just pure software-based emulation. We have a darn good 99.9 with a line over it percentage of perfect emulation for those systems. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, all these systems already have absolutely astounding emulators that have been worked on for decades. So why are people still emulating and working on emulators for those systems? There's already enough. Let's get some eyes on some new stuff where we have really bad documentation, where we have emulators for systems that, they might not be popular. Maybe they're even freaking bad. Like everyone loves to bash on Atari Jaguar, but even though there's only 50 or 60 Atari Jaguar games for the full collection, all regions, there's still not a very good Jaguar emulator. Why? Stop wasting your time on crap that we already have, and put that focus on stuff that doesn't have good emulation support yet. I don't care if it's a quote-unquote bad system. I loved my Atari Jaguar. I remember going to, not Empire Records. That wasn't the place. It was a place in San Juan Capistrano. No, not San Juan. What am I thinking? It was off of El Toro in Mission Viejo. It was a store called Off the Record. And it was a old, used record store, but they also had video games. And it was close to the Salvation Army, and before El Toro got revamped, there was a movie theater there and all that. So I would go there as a kid, and I would trade in old games that I just didn't want, or I played a billion times, and I wanted something new. And I remember getting my Atari Jaguar there, and I convinced my friend Andrew to get one too. And both of us got it roughly around the same time, I believe. And he got games like Cybermorph, which again is infamously bad, but I didn't hate it. I never actually really played it all that much. Andrew had it, and I remember him being pretty annoyed with that game if I'm remembering correctly. But I had a blast with my Jaguar. The controller is super weird, but it's interesting. Controllers don't look like that. It had the A, B, and C buttons, start and select, D-pad, and then a huge number pad taking up most of the controller space. And it had overlays for games as well. So every game used the number pad differently. And there was a game that is near and dear to my heart. And this is one of the reasons why I really, really like my Atari Jaguar. Game called Theme Park. If you don't know it, you should look it up. But you probably do know it because it was made by a company called Bullfrog Interactive. Bullfrog was the huge kind of inventor of the theme park simulator. And they went on and moved on and did Theme Hospital as well. And then they did Sim Theme Park on the consoles like PlayStation 2. So these games were simulation based, but they had some humor to them. They weren't strictly simulation. They were management sim games, but with a lot of a little British humor in there, mostly because they were a British company. And then EA bought them out, and they just died on the vine. They were shuttered like a lot of EA studios are. But Bullfrog, man, they made the Sim Theme Park, or the original theme park game, and it was an obsession of mine. This was before Roller Coaster Tycoon. And so you basically start out with this plot of land, and you get these, the menu buttons, the number buttons on the Atari Jaguar did something different. And so that was a really good way of taking what was a PC-based simulation game and HUD system and made it interesting for consoles and doable. And it was really, really cool. So I would put all the paths down, open up the gates, and then start building rides. And everything is prefabricated in this game. So all the rides are prefabricated, just like Roller Coaster Tycoons, like thrill rides and amusement rides and stuff like that, in burger shops and drink stands and umbrella factories and all that stuff. All prefabricated. The thing that Roller Coaster Tycoon did was allow you to create your own roller coasters. This didn't have that, but it didn't need it because, again, it was very, very basic, and Roller Coaster Tycoon did not exist at this point. So Theme Park did all of this stuff with an isometric view, and just the one thing that it didn't have that other versions like the PC and the PlayStation, the original PlayStation version had, was that you could actually take a first-person view of the ride. And it was just all pre-rendered cutscenes, and it's not that interesting now, but back then, especially to a kid of like 13, somewhere around there, it was stupidly interesting. It was rad. So I love my Atari Jaguar, and I really wish people would put forth effort into other emulators. We already got Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis and Atari 2600 and ColecoVision and Intellivision and Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. All those software emulation programs are absolutely fine. I'm not sitting here saying they're 100% accurate because that's really hard to do with software. That's where stuff like the Mister comes in. But this is, I said I wouldn't go into it, but I'm just going to get a tiny bit into it. Put yourself or any other person who's not coding this stuff, anyone who has a Mister, put them down in front of a Mister with a controller and boot up a game from Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Atari, 2600, 5200, 800, ColecoVision, Intellivision, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Gear, Atari Lynx. Put them in front of a screen with a controller, and I guarantee you they could not tell a difference between program software emulation, like something like RetroArch and all their different cores, or any like old school standalone emulator like Nesticle or Kegsa or whatever, which is like the Genesis emulator that a lot of people use, and a Mister, you put them in front of it, and they could not tell you the difference between software emulation and a Mister or FPGA emulation. And that's why I have a big problem with this whole Mister issue. Is like people are. It's not even the hardware itself. That's great. I'm super happy that people are, devoting their time to getting these little emulation boxes working. But I never want to have a small little device that I have to reconfigure. And this is the thing. People are still updating and working on it, and they're just barely getting certain things that we've had for decades in software emulation running. And people are freaking out like it's the new sliced bread. It is so baffling to see people on podcasts and video game media sites and things like that, where they are singing the praises of this new thing that, like, we've had it for decades. It's not that big of a deal. Like, I believe the Mister just recently got a PC Engine CD, the TurboGrafx CD games working. Like, cool. I was doing that in 2003 on my modded Xbox. Big deal. And it, again, same thing. You put an original modded Xbox in front of someone and tell them to play the TurboGrafx CD game, or you put them in front of a Mister, and they couldn't tell you which one is which if you don't let them know. That's why I'm so kind of frustrated with the whole Mister phenomenon. It's not absolutely amazing like a lot of people are saying. I'm not saying it's not awesome. It's not great that people are doing this, but again, the emulation scene, the community around emulation, they're a bunch of babies for the most part. I've had so many fights with so many different software emulators and people who do this stuff because I say, you need to do this. This is a very simple thing. This is what needs to happen for the community to grow and software emulation to get better. And people, they cry and whine about legal stuff that they themselves are illegally doing. There's a whole thing about hyperspin back in the early 2010s and stuff. I was into the hyperspin scene. I thought it was really, really cool, and I wanted to build a hyperspin arcade cabinet. And I had one in my store that I was working on, and I never really got to get finished, which is a bummer. But hyperspin was this really cool front end system, which is what I wanted out of a emulation package. Basically, that's what I wanted the original Xbox to be, and I started getting into it, and then people would always freak out about, well, I created this cover. I pulled off some Google image box art, and then I created a 3D image of it, and you're not allowed to use that. When it's the same people who are literally downloading video games and emulators and rips of every single game of all time ever. Like, I'm not sitting here crying illegal, because I don't care, but at the same time, don't be a hypocrite about it, I'm not going to sit here and say, you're not allowed to use this because, I pulled the box art off of Google instead of you, and you just downloaded my copy that I put up on some FTP server. Like, that whole scene is just such a joke, and it's a bummer because these people who are doing this work are really brilliant, very, very smart people, very skilled software engineers and programmers. But they act like a bunch of big babies when it comes to their intellectual property and stuff. So I always get mad about that. So all that to say, basically, the original Xbox emulator, the one that I've been playing Tony Hawk 2 and 3 on, is really good. It works very well. It still has a ways to go, and I cannot wait until it gets better so that I can play more original Xbox games in, 5K resolution with my Xbox One Elite controller and all that stuff. You can do that now. That's why it's rad. It's just that it needs some work so that it doesn't crash as often, or certain games don't have compatibility, there's still, because, I talked about it a lot on the podcast last year, Toe Jam and Earl, one of my favorite game of last year. Toe Jam and Earl 3 is exclusive to the original Xbox, and a lot of people hate it for some dumb reason. It's not the best, and I really do agree that the whole rap thing got really stupid, and the gospel singing makes no sense in that game. But that game is basically a 3D version of Toe Jam Earl 1 and 2, and Back on the Groove, this new one that came out last year. It was a game that came out in 2001, 2002, I believe. And it was basically the game that we wanted all along. It had a really weird overtone to it. But I want to play through it because I got really far. I loaded up my original Xbox a couple months ago to take a look at it. And my completions percentage is like 70 something. So I remember basically the very beginning of the game and nothing afterwards. And I want to play it again. And I really want to play it in really high definition. I want to play it on my projector screen and not a component-based 720p output on a TV that is stuck in my murder room. That is why I want emulation, so that I can sit and have every single game at my fingertips from every system imaginable from the last 4 decades of gaming. It's a bummer that it's not as good as it can be, but hopefully we'll get there. There's improvements all the time. So, Tony Hawk 3, I beat the whole thing. It was okay at best, like I said last time. I really don't like Tony Hawk 3. I think the levels are pretty bad for the most part. I think there are a couple decent levels. The Tokyo level, the Skater's Island level, which both are competition levels and both basically skate parks. Those levels are great. But Foundry, Canada, Suburbia, Airport, those levels suck. They're really bad. They're boring. They're lame. The objectives are dumb. You got to... I think there's a couple ideas for objectives that are pretty interesting, but you got to grind 4 pumpkins, or grind the power lines so that these tree branches that fell on the power lines will get a satellite to work, or just dumb stuff like that, or knock off the pickpockets in the airport, people stealing and pickpocketing customers. What the crap is that? It is so dumb and lame. So that is why I really don't like Tony Hawk 3. I don't like the levels. I don't like the objectives for the most part. I think them moving to having skill points that you accumulate, which are, there's 5 skill points in all of the levels that you can get. And you can adjust your skill points as much as you want. So this is, again, a really easy way to kind of circumvent some of the weird crap in that game and make your life a lot easier for every single skater when you want to start completing 100% of the game with all the skaters. Start off by choosing the skater, going into the edit stats, removing everything that you don't need, like lip balance. Like if you're doing lip tricks on like a half pipe or something, not in-air tricks, but lip balance, where you're sitting there holding a lip move and in your balancing, that's pointless. That is absolutely, utterly pointless. Remove all of those. You got 5 skill points usually right off the bat there. And then you can add everything into, what is it? Rail balance, manual balance, air time, hang time, and ollie, and speed, and spin. All of those are way better than lip balance. Oh, come on. And then the other thing too is you can edit all your moves. So you can make a very easy button combo your special move for special grinds, special manuals, special kickflips and special grabs. And so I spent about 2 minutes every time I would start a new character immediately without even starting the first level, changing all that stuff. And by that point, you have everything you need to get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of points in every single level right off the bat without even adding any other crap to it. So I would fly through the entire campaign for a character in about 20 minutes or so, because it's so easy at that point to pull off special moves. And that's part of the game, so that's not like glitching it out or cheating. That's literally a menu option in the game to edit stats and edit trick combos. And even when you complete objectives as you progress through the game, you unlock more slots to add in more special moves. They want you to do lots and lots of special moves. They want you to change up your stats so that you can, quote unquote, create the character and build your character like you want. And it just, it dumbs down a lot of the gameplay, and the objectives are all just dumb. They're all the same. They're all very easy to pull off and do for the most part as well. I did like that there was a couple characters that changed the location of some of the objectives, like the skate letters or the skill points, stuff like that. But everything else was basically the exact same layout for every single character. And it was like that in the other games too, but they were just way more fun. I mostly hate the soundtrack of 3. I think it is some of the worst songs I've ever heard in my life. There's a couple good ones. There's CKY in there. And there's a couple other like Suicidal Tendencies, but there's some just bad picks. There's, I've hated the Ramones my entire life. I do not like the Ramones. I respect them, but I don't like their music at all. And hearing Blitzkrieg Bop, the only Ramones song that everyone knows, that one being in that game stands out like a sore thumb. I think it does not fit at all. And the other one too is there's this one called, oh man, I can't remember the name of it, but it is just one of the crassest, stupidest rap songs I've ever heard in my life. It makes no sense in being in that game whatsoever. And so, I just want to move on. So, oh boy. So that was my Tony Hawk stuff. I'm going to move on to 4. I played about 15 minutes of it a couple days ago, and I want to wait until I get back home, finish up work stuff, and then spend the next weekend playing through that and really trying to remember what that game was about. But I actually played through 3 different games that are very short and very quick to finish and complete. And I had way more fun with those than some of the games that I've been playing up until this year. There's a game called Deliver Us the Moon. And it was a game that came out technically last year, technically 2008, I believe, if their Kickstarter is to be believed. Deliver Us the Moon is basically a space game in the same vein of Tacoma, which I loved. I thought that was a really fun game. Fulbright Studios, the people who made Gone Home, they basically made a Gone Home in space, which is Tacoma. And there's another game called Adrift that was a good VR game that I played through. And Deliver Us the Moon basically takes a lot of those concepts from Tacoma, from Adrift, from Lone Echo, another VR space game. And it kind of combines all of them into this one crazy, like just mishmash, like I cannot believe they pulled this off type of game. I don't want to go too deep into it because it's a very short game. It can be completed in about 2.5, 3 hours. So it's this small little game. It's on Gamepass, and I think it's perfect for Gamepass. It's like $25, $30 normally, but I got it for free because of Gamepass. So I just downloaded it and tried it out and played through the whole thing in one sitting. Basically, without spoiling the story, you are a character who has to go to the moon because in the not too distant future of like 2035 or 45, they basically put this big mining space station operation on the moon that drills for this unique material and sends it through this space elevator into back to Earth. And it's all this energy that gets transferred to Earth because the Earth at this point has had all their resources depleted, food, water, gas, all that stuff. So this energy gets converted on the moon throughout this huge, gigantic base and shot back to Earth. And that's been going on for a while, but about 5 years before you start playing the story, I could be getting this wrong because the story's a little bit weird in the game, but basically something happens on the moon to where everyone just, there's no communication. It goes black. Communications go dark, and you are sent to the moon to go figure out what's happening. And you are one person, and it's a little bit weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but hey, stick with me because the game's fantastic. So what this game is kind of a narrative space exploration type of game with a ton of different mechanics built into it. There is first-person traversal sections. There are third-person traversal sections. There are stealth sections. There is vehicle sections. There's even first-person being caught in in space and trying to make your way through without losing all your oxygen and dying, which, again, taken from Adrift like verbatim or Lone Echo as well. So it is short and sweet. It is perfect for Gamepass, and it crams so many different types of gameplay mechanics into this one little tiny game made by a few people. And I really, really liked it. And it was something that has stuck with me for the last couple of weeks since I finished it. I finished it like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. And I really love it. It is something that I would tell pretty much everyone who likes video games to play, to try it out. It's only like 2 to 3 hours. It's basically like a long movie, and you get a story that's pretty interesting. You can spend more time in there if you need to. I think, and it's got a lot of puzzles too, which I really like, environmental puzzles. And they're not really hard. There was one section I got stuck on because I just didn't realize I needed to move this thing over to a different area. Like, I understood the concept of what I was supposed to do. I just didn't know where it needed to be. And the level 8, it's a little bit of labyrinthian in some areas, but it's so cool. It's such a good game. So I would highly, 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 highly recommend Deliver Us the Moon. It's also a rad title, too. Then, last night, I picked up a game that I heard stuff about for the last couple of weeks on podcasts when I'm doing my daily commute to work and stuff like that. I would hear a couple podcasts talk about this game. It's a game that wasn't really on my radar for various reasons, but it's Minecraft Dungeons by Mojang Studios, the people who made Minecraft. Minecraft has had a couple different types of games that take inspiration and use the universe of Minecraft for. But this one I really liked. And a lot of people didn't, apparently. Anytime I listened to a podcast, they would pretty much only say negative things about this. And I don't really know why too much, because I don't think it's really that bad of a game. It's very simple. It is a dungeon crawler, like Diablo, a loot-based dungeon crawler. And this game is supposed to be played multiple times with up to 3 other people. And that's not me. I don't play games multiple times, and I don't play multiplayer games with people mostly. So I just sat down and started playing it, and I just wanted, again, it was another game where I just kind of needed a palate cleanser of some sort, something to do to kind of pass a little bit of time. I started it up, and it was on Gamepass, so it was free, and I really liked it. I don't think it's amazing, but it is something that is very easy to recommend to a lot of people, especially people who have never played dungeon crawlers before, like myself. I've played probably about an hour combined. I take that back. About 2 hours combined of dungeon crawler, like Diablo-esque games. Played a little bit of Diablo. I never played more than maybe about an hour and a half of Diablo. And this game is very simplistic in that. And I get it. I realize why people like these types of games. It's kind of pretty cool. But I'm not a big loot-based person either. If there is loot in a game, I don't care about it most of the time because this is my issue. And if you really want to get more thoughts on this, go read some of the stuff I put on the Game or Die website because I wrote a couple reviews for these games. Been doing a lot of writing too. The reason why I don't like these types of loot-based games is because the loot that drops, most of the loot, 99% of the loot, is worthless, garbage, pointless. It serves no purpose whatsoever. And you get a lot of it throughout playing these games. So you're expected to, every time you pick up a new thing, a new drop, you are supposed to go into your inventory, see what you have equipped, see what the new thing is that you picked it up, compare the two, figure out which one is better, equip the thing that you got new to see what it does, and then drop like enchantments or buffs on it to bring it up to speed, and then resume the game. And you're supposed to do that like every couple minutes, and I don't want to do that. I hate doing that. I hate inventory management in games. I hate weight in games, like movement speed increasing by weight and stuff like that, or decreasing by weight. So I played this game and I really enjoyed it for what it was. It's very simplistic. It's basically like South Park's The Stick of Truth. That game was basically like my first RPG. Very light on the RPG mechanics, very simple, but you got what an RPG was, like a turn-based RPG game. So what I like is I like to actually play this game thinking like that, where it's like, this isn't really for me or for people who play these games all the time, but I really enjoyed it for what it was. Yes, there is no deformation of the land like there is in normal Minecraft, but that would be really weird with this game, and that's, again, not what this game is about. And this is where I have a problem with a lot of people who crap on games, where they talk about something and they bash a game for what it could have been versus what it is. This game is not Minecraft, and if you want Minecraft, you have normal Minecraft to play. This is a dungeon crawler. It is taking the Minecraft world and stories and blah, blah, blah and characters and throwing them into a different genre, which we don't get all that often anymore. Because the middle tier scene dropped out of games back in the late aughts, basically. And so we don't get a lot of semi-budget title or B games where here's an established property, you drop them into a new type of genre, and bam, you have a game. And that's what this is. And it's really okay. It's not amazing. It's not super great. It took me about 4.5, 5 hours to complete. And I loved it for what it was, not what it could have been. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a little bit of a break and play some music. And then I'll come back and I'll talk about the last game that I actually just finished playing, which was super fun and, again, super short because I finished Minecraft Dungeons last night and at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And now it is, it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Sunday afternoon, the next day. and I finished another game that I didn't even start until this afternoon. So, play some music, come back, talk about some games, and that'll be that.
I used to live in a psychic city. I never knew what would happen in a day. I might be looking out the window, and a friend might say, come on over, come on over, come on over, we're having a party for you. Come on over, come on over, come on over, we're having a party for you. I used to live in a voodoo city where every little thing had its own secret life. I might be washing up the dishes, and the kitchen might say, hang around, baby, baby, hang around, baby, baby, hang around, baby, we'll be baking a cake for you. Hang around, baby, baby, hang around, baby, baby, hang around, baby, we'll be baking a cake for you. I used to live in a heartbeat city. I swear I'd fall in love every minute on the street. You might be walking around the corner, and our eyes might meet. Where you been, darling, darling? Where you been, darling, darling? Where you been, darling? We've been holding this moment for you. Where you been, darling, darling? Where you been, darling, darling? Where you been, darling? We've been holding this moment for you. I told you your dreams would come true. I told you your dreams would come true. I told you your dreams would come true. I told you your dreams would come true.
Okay, so the next game that I want to talk about is a game that I just completed just a few hours ago. And again, this is another Game Pass game. Like the last 3 games that I've played and completed were Game Pass games. And I love Game Pass. I wish it was a little bit less expensive. I wish I used it more than I do. But it is a really cool subscription-based model. And this is the way companies should be doing subscription-based models for video games. You have a subscription for PC and the console, and sometimes those games don't always line up, but there is a lot of crossover. Both are able to be played on the PC and the Xbox. And I played this game called Gato Roboto, and it is something I did not even think I would like, nor would I complete, but I played through it in one sitting. It was fantastic. Basically, this game is a exploration-based platformer. It's a Metroidvania. I swear I hate that stupid naming scheme, but it is the one that most people are familiar with. So, this game basically is, it has a black and white color scheme in the vein of, there was a game called Downwell, which was a weird run-based game that you jump down a well and you try to go as far as you can without dying. And then if you die, you just restart over again. But it's basically black and white. It's a It's a very bright, colorful, or not colorful, non-colorful Metroidvania. And it has a lot of it's more Metroid than Metroidvania because you do go back and backtrack a little bit, but you have a guy who's in a spaceship and his cat accidentally bumps one of the control panels and he crashes the ship on this planet. Well, that pilot basically is trapped underneath a lot of wreckage, and so the cat has to go save him. So you play as this cat running around jumping, and you get a mech, like a mech suit that you are able to jump and shoot rockets and laser beams and all this type of stuff. And you try to help your pilot passenger owner guy. It's really fun. It's very small. It took me about 2.5 hours to complete today. And I had a blast. I really enjoyed it for what it was. It's a very small game made by a very indie, small gaming company. But it's fun, it's enjoyable, and this is what I love about video games is I don't always need that huge AAA type of experience, thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of man hours poured in by, tons of different teams. I like those games. I enjoy those, but I enjoy these little games just as much in a different way. And that's what gaming should be. We shouldn't just try to strive for one single type of game. Games, yes, they are art and they are different, and some can be very personal experiences, and people who want to tell personal stories as a way to either grieve or get past a personal issue. Some are just people wanting to tell crazy stories. Some are built by corporations who have to put out certain things. Some are just straight up sequels or roster updates. Games can be so many different things. And this game, the other games that I talked about today, where they were like sequels or established franchises transplanted into a different genre, all these games are totally different, and Gato Roboto is a small little game that is a Metroidvania, and it's got a lot of the Metroid feeling to it. It doesn't really have much of a soundtrack. It's more atmospheric. It's got a lot of the tubes that get you into a different screen or a different area that are opened by shooting or missile attacks from your mech suit. It's got a little bit of a storyline, and the storyline's not that great. It has a point of no return in it where they want you to go and get 100%. I didn't get 100%. I got a 70%. And I felt okay with that. With 2.5 hours, I didn't want to backtrack. I knew that I was going to have to leave for work super early in the morning, so I only had a few hours today to play video games and record a podcast. So I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to go backtrack and get everything else. I really just wanted to just play this game and not have to unlock every single thing. Just do what I wanted to do, complete what I wanted to complete without having to get into that completionist mentality where you have to do every single thing that the game offers. You don't. One of the things that I told my friend Andrew when we were talking about stuff, we were going through our Game of the Year list and best of lists and stuff, and he always brought up the fact that, why do you like these sandbox games when you also say at the same time that you love story-based games and all this stuff? And so some games like Roller Coaster Tycoon are on my favorite of all time list. And I said, well, it's because when I have games that have objectives or collectathons, like anything that has collecting as a component of the game, and there's percentages in the game, if I am having fun with the game and I'm having fun collecting everything, then I do it. If I'm not having fun with it, or I'm not enjoying collecting stuff, I'm not going to collect it. With collecting in games, you have to get 100% most of the time to get everything out of collecting that item. You rarely ever actually unlock anything if you only collect 75% of the items or 99% of the items. You have to collect everything. So if it's not fun and if it's not enjoyable, it's not worth actually collecting any of that stuff. So if I'm having fun collecting stuff, I'll collect it. And I did have fun with this game, but going back and trying to unlock different palette colors for this game, it was okay, but it wasn't enjoyable. So if I saw an area where I went, oh, I think I can get there, and I tried and got there and started progressing, then I would get that palette color unlock or whatever other thing that there was. But if I tried for about 2 or 3 minutes and I couldn't get to the place that I needed to and I didn't know how to unlock it, I wasn't going to run my brain against a wall just to unlock another color scheme. And that's pretty much all that you can do in this game is you go through the main story. The main story gives you the unlockables to progress throughout the game, but there are certain little areas that are explorable that you can find that will give you an unlockable. And the unlockable in this game is basically a color palette. Like some other games, like Downwell, like, what was that game? Luftrausers, where the game has it's like a monochrome color scheme. Well, they give you unlockable palettes, a Game Boy Color type of palette, negative type, a very blue and red, or even a Virtual Boy color palette. Because mainly, like I said, the backgrounds and everything is mainly black with white outlines for your characters and the walls and the enemies and stuff like that. So I enjoyed it, but I didn't want 100% it, nor did I really feel like it was necessary to complete this game today to do. I had fun. I would encourage people, again, it's on Gamepass, so really just try and play a little bit of it. And then the last thing I'll talk about is I'm still playing Moving Out with my wife. It is a super fun game. That game is so enjoyable for co-op experiences. It can get a little bit frustrating if you are really trying to run through the game as quickly as possible. We play it like once a week at this point, just because, again, I've been really busy with work. She's been getting back to work, going into the office and things like that. So our schedules are, a little bit scattered at the moment. And so we played a little bit this afternoon. It was really fun. It was enjoyable. We played it for about half hour, 45 minutes, something like that. We got a couple levels done, a couple of different objectives. We haven't 100%ed the level yet, but still going strong on that. It is just such a great co-op game that there's not a whole lot of now. So if you have someone in your life that you can play games with, I encourage you to try and play something that's a little bit outside of your wheelhouse, something that's a little less normal. If you only play multiplayer deathmatch games like Call of Duty and Doom and Quake and all that stuff, try and experience something new and different. That's what I really like about games is there's so many different types of games now. There's no one set genre. So I always tell people, if you like those, Call of Duty single player campaign storylines or multiplayer deathmatch types games, great, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but play something new. I especially lately, all the video content and podcasts that I listen to, everyone's playing the same thing for months at this point. And it's getting really boring and really tired. I don't care about Call of Duty for the umpteenth time. They talk about it every week since it came out in last November. We're halfway through the year. It's June. It's in the middle of June, and people are still playing Call of Duty primarily. and they're still playing all these other games, and that's all they're playing. They keep going, "Oh, I'm so depressed because of the world, and I cannot deal with any of this stuff." There is games coming out. It's a very small amount of flow of games, but there is still new games coming out. And if you can't afford those games, even if you can't afford something like Game Pass, go to your backlog and play stuff. It's incredible how much I've gotten out of just playing older games the last couple of months. Games that I've had for years. Excuse me. Games that I've had for years at this point. So I just think that there's some really cool games. There was a game that was announced yesterday, and I bought it and played it because it came out in early access. I played about an hour of it. It's called Among Trees, and it is a early access survival game. Survival crafting game. Like we have a lot of those, but this one is it's got a unique art style. It's very pastel in its in its color scheme, and also its geometry is very basic. There's a lot of polygonal type of art to it. So this game is just brand new, just announced yesterday. It's very basic and bare bones at this point, so I don't know how much I'll play of it and talk about it until it kind of gets further on. Probably next year, unfortunately, is when it'll start getting a lot more content. I looked at the roadmap for it. It's very basic. It's like, hey, we wanted to put more leaves and plants in and blah, 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 crafting stuff. But it seems really cool. And because it is exclusive to the Epic Gaming Store, I had a coupon, a $10 coupon for it. And the game right now is $16.99. And I had a $10 off coupon. So with that $10 off coupon, I bought that game for $6.99. I bought it for $7. I couldn't care less if that game doesn't have anything for the next year or so, because when it does release out of early access, I'll play it, and I'll definitely get $7 worth of enjoyment out of it. So, you win some, you lose some on those types of games. There was a game called, and this is what Among Trees actually reminds me a lot of, was The Long Dark. Another survival crafting game where it's more about survival and with elements, snow and wind and hail and sleet and freezing temperatures. I really wanted to like that game more than I did. When it was in early access, they were like, oh, we're going to have a story mode and all this stuff, but with some of those games, they require you to pay so close attention to them and devote so much time to them that it almost becomes like a job to play certain games. And that's where I draw the line with gaming. If your game requires me to pay so much attention that I'm spending hours upon hours upon hours of research just to play the game right, then that's not fun. Something like Subnautica, or even heck, Minecraft originally, where there was a lot of crafting, but you didn't really know how to do it in those early days, that was okay. But when there's games where it requires you to go outside of what the game actually is, go on forums, go on Reddit posts, look up all this stuff, look at the wikis for recipes, that's where I draw the line. Luckily, Subnautica never did that. Originally, it did because the game was in so early access that you had to talk to other people about this stuff because they didn't have all the major recipes when it was first launching. But, as it got better and better and more into development, they actually put recipe books and stuff like that. And it's a very story-oriented but also open-world gameplay. And that's what I love about these types of games. You can do what you want, but there's also a narrative to progress towards. There's a breadcrumb trail, so to speak, of how to play these games properly and get to the finish line. I'm not the type of person to spend 200 hours in a game. That's not me. That's not my character. There's so many different games to play that I want to go ahead and play as much as I possibly can. If there's a game like something like I talked a lot about last year was Red Dead Redemption online. I played that for like 100 hours because there was always something new to do. And sometimes it was what I wanted to do. Sometimes it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I still had fun. And when I stopped having fun, I stopped playing. So I haven't played and I haven't picked up Red Dead 2 in months because, hey, I'm done playing that game for now. And if there's a new expansion for the online that adds something crazy new, maybe even a new part to the map or whatever it is or storyline, I'll pick it up again. But I don't need to keep going back and doing dailies because I got what I wanted out of that game. And I'm not missing it. I'm missing the feeling of, hey, I played this game a ton and I had a blast every single time I picked up the controller. But there's so many other games. So I always like to encourage everyone to play as many games as possible. If you're having fun with a game, keep playing it. But don't play it so often that you neglect other games coming out, other new experiences. It's fine to go and have your comfort food of gaming, which, by the way, I hate that phrase, comfort food, because, yeah, you can pick up and play a game, when you're feeling sad or lonely or depressed or whatever, but I don't really have many of those games. I always like to play something new, and especially because of the age that we live in, how many games have been made and preserved. You can play every single Nintendo game ever created, every Super Nintendo game, every Genesis game ever created. At the drop of a hat, you can just go play it right now if you really wanted to. So go out, play something new. If you are looking for some stuff, you have no idea, just try something. If it even remotely sparks your interest, if you have Gamepass or a subscription like I think it's PlayStation now or whatever, or if you have Steam or Epic Game Store literally gives away games every week. The new ones were Ark and the Samurai Showdown Neo Geo collection this week, just a couple days ago. I mean, there's 2 games, and one of those games that is free is literally 6 different games. So how can you say, oh, I have nothing to play? I hate when people say that. I have nothing, there's nothing to play. Yes, there is. You're just lazy and you don't want to do the work to start up a new game. And yeah, starting up a new game can be a little bit daunting, a little bit hard to understand when you start getting into the game if it's a little obtuse, but spend the time to play it. It's a hobby. And if you don't like playing games, hey, stop. No one's forcing you to play these games. You're not being paid by some company to play these games. And if you are one of those people who have a podcast and your job is to play games, shut up and play them. Stop whining and complaining about, I don't have games, or, oh, I'm so depressed. Your job is to play these games, and people would kill to have those types of positions. So gaming is a hobby, and if you don't like it, stop. And if you love it, try something new. And if you don't like that new thing, after you've gave it an actual chance, don't give it 5 minutes or 10 minutes and say, oh, it's not for me. Keep going a little bit. No one got anything out of life by trying something and immediately not liking it and stopping. So I could go into a rant and I really don't want to. I'm tired and it's been a long day, but those are the games that I've been playing. I'm going to try and think throughout this week as I am at work and doing stuff, trying to figure out what's the next game that I want to start up. I would really like to play a little bit more of Tony Hawk 4 and finish the campaign with a couple characters because, I've already done the first 3. Why not the next one? And continue on with that series. But I do want to find a new series as well to progress and play through. Last year when I was playing through like the Castlevania games and stuff like that, I had such a blast. And I want a game that requires a little bit more ingenuity and thought, because the Tony Hawk series is a very basic type of gameplay. To finish those games well, doesn't require a whole lot of brain power. They're fun, but they are not thinker type of games. They're action and chain combo type of games. I want something a little bit more exploratory, a little bit more narrative based. So I'm going to start looking, but I just want to thank anyone who's listening. Thank you for listening to the podcast. My name has been Ryan Moore. My name is Ryan Moore. This has been the Game or Die podcast. And if you want to take a look at any of the reviews that I've been writing for any of the games that I've been talking about and stuff like that, it is all up on gameordie.net. And I'm continually writing stuff every once in a while for any games that I complete. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.